What's going on, YouTube? Pretty excited for this one because we're going to be taking this restored steering column that we did a couple episodes back, and we can put it in the school car and get the steering system all finished up. Just a quick disclaimer on this. It's kind of difficult to do by yourself because you have to do some stuff inside the car, stuff in the engine bay, stuff inside the car, stuff in the engine bay. So if you've got some friends that are willing to help you out, I would call them up and see if you can get some help, because it just makes it that much easier. But as you'll see in this video, you can ride the struggle bus and get through it by yourself. All right, now if you watched the last video, I did mention that I purposely kind of kept this shaft stuck out further than what we need. And the reason being is it's much easier to push this in and collapse this tube than it is to get this intermediate shaft out once you've put a significant amount of material in here. So that's why I left it out. And the first thing we're going to do is we're literally going to just slip it in through the boot, get the at least a couple nuts on, and mount the column where it's supposed to go. In the process of doing that, the shaft will probably stick out further than this universal joint, and then we can roughly mark out and estimate how much we need to push the shaft back in. Then we're going to pull the column back out. We're going to make the adjustment here to that measurement. That way, when we go back to do it, what we got to do is then we'll concentrate on getting this slipped into the universal joint yoke here, and that will be the only thing we have to worry about. The length will be just a little bit longer than we need, because there is going to be some friction here, so it may push the shaft in a little bit as well. So that's how we're going to do that. Now remember, we're not bolting it in, so if you just use 3, you'll get the column square and in position. Just get them as tight as you can with your fingers. Not like super tight with your fingers, just snug with your fingers. That means that, you know, the column's gonna be flush to the mounting surfaces, and it's gonna be in the position that you want it in. So now we'll check the intermediate shaft and see how much we have to adjust it. All right, so as we can tell, or as you can see here, we've definitely got quite the adjustment to make, right? So we got to bring this up almost exactly the length of the splines, so a little bit less. So we'll measure that out, probably right where this cut is. Actually, that's how much we need to push the shaft back up. So we're going to take a measurement, make a little mark here, and then push this in until it's level with that tube there, and that should give us appropriately the right length. Now, obviously, you just saw me use a sledgehammer to kind of push that in. I was supporting the column with my hand up against the firewall and smashing, so that was taking a lot of force off the actual column itself. Probably not the best way to do that, but I don't have a press or anything like that. And you do have to actually compress that in there with some force. But what you're going to do is you're going to give it like a mushroom tip. It's the very tip of the intermediate shaft is going to like mushroom out. I'll show you. So because we used a hammer, you can see right here, it's kind of hard to see, right just the very edge here is wider than the rest of the shaft now, because we've compressed the metal and it's pushed outward. So what we're going to do is, now that we've got this to the appropriate length, as you can see, that's right about right, these splines are going to stick out of the intermediate shaft just a tiny bit, so these right here aren't actually going to be working for us. All throughout here is what's going to work for us, plus the bolt retention. So what we're going to do is when we take the column back out, we're just going to take a grinder and we're just going to put a nice little taper on this and remove the mushrooming because it's not being used, and then we'll slip it back in together. There's probably better ways to do this, I'll be honest, but I've done like 5 of these now, and that seems to be the easiest with what most average car guys or car girls have in their garage. So that's my method. If you find something better, feel free to call me out or tell me. I'd love to know. All right, so now that we got your intermediate shaft pushed up to the appropriate length, I'm gonna go ahead and take it out just to make it easier. Again, they were just in here hand tight, remember? That should help us get it right in. All right, this is where having a friend really comes in handy because they can help you guide Okay, you can't bolt it in because it'll push it, it won't give you enough room to get the shaft in. So if you run a bungee cord from door to door or across the car with a washer on the nut there, and be careful of your turn signal and your cruise control, but you can hang it and suspend it in a close enough angle that you can grab the intermediate shaft in the engine bay and manipulate it and at least get it started and get the whole process going, and eventually then you'll get it close enough that you can get the first 2 on there because you have a big kind of a slip joint there, and then as you get your final fitment you'll be able to get all 4 up there and tighten the column up and then do your intermediate shaft later. Alright, and as you play with it, you should kind of feel it start to get lined up. Just shake and push it in. One thing I want to point out is that you want that flat edge lined up so that the bolt can pass through that hole without hitting the shaft. That's kind of what that's there for. It's kind of like a secondary like lock. So make sure you have that lined up with the bottom of the rack. And you want the rack to be as center as possible when you put the wheel in. Then what you can do is you can grab the shaft here and push it down towards the rack, and then just give the rack, or the universal joint here, just give it some light taps. And it is a bit of an arm workout. Oh, there we go. you can see, I had it hung by just this one bolt, just to kind of barely get square. Now that we've got it, the shaft roughly where we want to try to slip this boot around the outside. There's a part that goes inside and a part that goes outside. So the inner part you want to kind of get in there. Okay, we need to sink it in a little bit more so that it'll come down for us. Now we're going to take our screwdriver here just to gently get this boot over the edge of the column. Because that right now, it's what's holding us up. Now we can get our boot around nicely all the way around. Inner part of the boot goes in the column. So now that we got top there, we'll push the bottom back gently. Just the thick inner part. You'll see on your own Corolla. You want to be careful not to tear it, obviously. You want to be very careful not to tear it. Now we're not going to tighten the column down all the way, but we're just going to get it really close to tight. That way we can still maneuver it a little bit, but don't forget to put that ground back on. Remember, we took that off on a earlier episode. Alright, so for now we're just going to put the stock steering wheel back on it. By getting the wheel straight, then we get a rough idea of where the wheel should be. So once we set the wheel straight, then we'll have a rough idea of where we want our steering wheel to be. We can go ahead and put the stock steering wheel on for right now. There we go. Alright, so we got it in there, got the column bolted in. Now, ideally you don't want the shaft sticking out like I have it here, but I have rotated the rack and it comes close, but it doesn't actually touch, so it's not interfering, so it's not causing a problem. But usually you don't really want a whole lot sticking out, much like that. You can see how that's a little recessed. If a little sticks out, that's okay, but what I have here is actually a little bit too much. Go ahead and put it in our pool. Until next time, guys. Peace.